Welcome to the Manders Mindset podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome to Manders Mindset, where we explore the power of shifting your mindset to shift your life. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am so excited for you guys to hear today's guest. Today's guest is Asara Lovejoy, and she is the founder of the One Command, a 6-step method that blends neuroscience and transformation to unlock human potential. Her work has helped people around the world shift limiting beliefs and create powerful change. Now let's get into the episode.
They have their own ability to create reality in exactly the direction they want. I mean, I go way back to my childhood. I lived in the country. We had 40 acres and was on a horse, I say, from 6 to 16. And then I discovered boys. And I had this lifelong desire to understand how we thought, why we did what we did. At one point, like I was 7, and there was we went to the Protestant church. There was another church where they did all this spiritual stuff, put scarves on, had incense, rang bells. And I told my parents, I'm going to that church. I want to know what's happening over there. And my parents were liberal enough to let me do that. And so I went 2 years, got confirmed, and said, okay, I got that. Now I don't need any more. I understand that church. And I had this extraordinary experience where I was running out in the wheat fields and I was laid down and I did wheat field angels instead of snow angels. And I was laying there looking up at the sky and was thinking about the churches saying God is everywhere. And I looked in the sky and I said, well, if God is everywhere, then that means God's perceiving me. God's looking at me. And as I was looking up in the sky, a face appeared. And I said, oh, my God is everywhere. That's too big. We can't have that much God looking at me. I mean, he's got to be everywhere. So the face got way bigger and there was just an eye. And then I said, oh, no, the eye's too big. If it's everywhere, that eye has got to be bigger to see more of everywhere. And when I had that thought, I looked at the speck in the eye. And when I looked at the speck in the eye, I was in the speck looking back down at my body in the wheat field. And I said, okay, I got it. There's 2 worlds. There's the worlds where my mom wants me to wear white gloves and patent leather shoes. And then there's the world of this connection that we have that is greater than our ordinary life. And I'm on it. This is my mission in life, is to let people know that there's a different state of consciousness than ordinary thinking where we have the rules and the laws. I mean, yeah, I'm a bit of a rebel. And at 13, I decided I wanted to study hypnosis. So
Can I ask you a question real quick? When you were looking in the sky, were you 13 when you saw that?
I was 5.
You were 5?
At 7, because I had already done the second church. I was 7 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying I've been on this my whole life. I know what my life purpose is. That's not to say I haven't had dramatic real life experiences and chaos and pain and suffering. I mean, I've gone through all of that. And that's why I have such compassion for us as human beings. I just want to say, hey guys, there's a way in which you can create your life. And my 6-step technique taps into that. But just know that you're greater than what you think about your daily life in your beta logical mind. That is the least resourceful part of our intelligence. Our brain is like a superconductor, or like a supercomputer. And the only thing we ever do is read email. Yeah, and I've said to people, hey, take about 30 minutes and write down your thoughts for 30 minutes. and you will discover that you start repeating yourself after 10 minutes, that you can't think of an original thought, that you can't think a new thought. You just keep the compulsive ideas that you've already got running around in your brain. And there's a lot of reasons why that happens. But, in terms of creating a new mindset, it's important to understand you have other parts of your brain that can take you out of that. So when I was 13, then I read a book on hypnosis and I asked my girlfriend to be my subject and I put her under and I couldn't get her to come out. The reverse is supposed to come out and she just stayed asleep. She just stayed asleep. She slept for an hour. I was afraid to tell my mom. I thought I'd done something bad. That was it. I said, no more hypnosis, never doing hypnosis again.
So did you actually not do hypnosis again?
No, I did do it. I did.
Okay,
I did
okay.
study hypnotherapy and teach it, as a matter of fact, and NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which was kind of a fun time of my life because the reason I did the hypnosis is because I wanted to see how the mind works. I thought, well, how do we make a decision? How do we get a thought? Where are my thoughts coming from? Why am I thinking the way I'm thinking? And so I started to go up in my mind and imagine what that was like. And it was just like, oh my God, that is, that's way too much information. I could never figure that out. But then neuro linguistic programming came along and it was able to quantify the different ways we think. And, either visually, auditorily, kinesthetically. And I loved it. I loved learning all about that way in which our mind works, our brain works. But my real passion is for the quantum field and quantum physics as applied to our brain. So going back to that, do you want to jump in? You want to ask anything or say anything?
Yeah, so I'm so curious about this experience when you were 13. And now she didn't wake up for, like you said, an hour?
I took the book, I just read the script in the book, and she went right under. I asked her a few questions, and then I said, "Now relax even more." Boom, she was gone.
So how did she eventually come back?
Just woke up like
Okay.
put her to sleep, like I had put her. But I'm thinking, "Oh my God, have I done something where I damaged my friend?"
At 13, I can imagine, like, you thinking, "Oh my god, did I, like, kill her or something?" Like, 'cause she's
Yeah, it was amazing. But, I'm the older generation. I'm the part of the majestic generation. So Doris Day, Rock Hudson, they were the stars. And I kept going to see these movies. Now I'm a little bit older. And I'm talking about creating reality because I watched How to Marry a Millionaire. And I said, you know what? I want to do that. I'm gonna do that. I wanna marry a millionaire. I like that movie. That was fun. That would be cool to marry a millionaire. And so at 19, I got married to a millionaire. He was available. He lived in our small area. We had a valley, Bonita Valley, outside of San Diego.
Can I backtrack a tad? So, like, you manifested this and you wanted to marry a millionaire. So did you start calling this in? Did you start writing, or was this just something you thought about? Or
There's what I call is the inner planes. And there's certain times when you know that you know. There's certain times when you think you know, and there's certain times when you wish you knew. So this was just I can do this. I mean, it was just now I say it was a command to my brain in an altered state because that's what the one command does is we go into the theta brainwave, we make a command while we're in theta, and all of our receptor sites, our neurons, our neurotransmitters, everything responds exactly to the thought that we have that we're creating, that we create new thoughts. So this is how we change our brain, change our mind. I just spontaneously did it as a kid, I mean, was 15 or 16, teenager, romance, all of that. There was a millionaire that was available that lived in our same valley, and he was friends of the family. So I, you know, okay, there's an option. When I went off to Berkeley, he moved up from San Diego up to San Francisco and started dating me. I was at college in Berkeley and he came over. He was lonely from home and we started dating and that was it. Now, I got married at 19, my first kid at 20. I had three more every 9 months. So I was living the traditional life of a woman in the 60s. And, in the 60s, I couldn't have a bank account. I couldn't sign my name to a mortgage. I couldn't be responsible without my husband co-signing. Yeah, I mean, we forget about those days. So we've come,
Come out from there.
yeah. Well, but anyway, it turned out he was a heavy duty alcoholic. So I stayed with him in the marriage for about 6 years and then said, okay, I learned something. Money isn't everything. Money isn't happiness. Yeah, it's kind of cool, but there's something better. So I had a relative that said, you got to stay married. You got to stay married. Look at all that financial security. I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. The mental suffering, the emotional suffering. And of course, they didn't know anything about alcoholism that much. So anyway, we got divorced and that launched me off into a weird life.
I bet it did. Now, like, divorce was even more, like, stigmatized, like, years and years ago. Like, even you mentioned your relative was like, "You gotta stay married." Even whether it's finances, whether it's the kids, whether it's become more acceptable.
Yeah, exactly. That was definitely it. But it was because of the way that I was interested in how we think and how we create reality. That would have been too small of a box for me to stay in a marriage. And so I launched off into the human potential field right at that time where I ended up with transcendental meditation, studied Buddhism, a lot of other different religions as well, joined a commune.
And you were still pretty young at this point.
I had 4 kids by the time I was 28 or 27. To think about that today, most people wait a long time before they have their children. My second daughter did that. She had her children when she was in her late 30s, 37, I think. And that was perfect for them. She got to have a huge life of lots of exploration and fun. And then I got 3 daughters with 3 fabulous son-in-laws. Mothers out there, you can do it. You can find the right guys. That's a mindset too. You can have happy people in your life. So let's talk about how we create reality. The simplest way to talk about it is to say that we all know we've had moments where we've had that certainty of something that we could do or create, or something was going to go in our way. We've all had those moments. Yeah, I'm gonna get that job. Yeah, I'm gonna meet that guy. I'm gonna meet that gal. Yeah, I'm gonna be able to make a contribution. Yeah, that's gonna happen. The reason we have those moments is because in quantum fields, in quantum talk, that means we have a coherent mind. That means that the unconscious, the conscious, and the universal or the quantum mind all are working together in a unified way to create a result. And our ordinary thinking mind, where we're every day we're trying to logically figure things out, is our beta brainwave, which is real fast and erratic. And the beta brainwave is not created to solve problems. Beta brainwave is logical, analytical, makes lists, it decides what groceries you're going to buy, and it judges. It judges. This is good. This is bad. Yes, I want to do this. I'm going to compare and contrast, and I'm going to have an opinion and judge others. And that's the role of the beta mind, to analyze and look at. And most people live there. They live there in pain and suffering because they can't comprehend why the world is not accommodating their judgment. This is my judgment, and the world is not accommodating my judgment. And that's scary. That makes me afraid. That makes me doubt whether I'm safe in the world.
Yep.
You want?
Well, and it almost seems like I don't know what brainwave I want to say you were in, but you must not have been in the beta brainwave, to be able to leave and get divorced, because you weren't thinking about what people are thinking. You are thinking about you know? and like thinking about the reality you want, not like what you currently had,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I'm a right brain thinker. I've been a right brain thinker all my life. I mean, when I was telling you about it as that childhood, coffee went down the wrong way. I was extremely intuitive or psychic, whatever you wanted to call it. I remember one day we were at a grocery store, and my mother was talking to a woman, and they were having a pleasant conversation, and I kept pulling on her skirt. I was young. I kept pulling on her skirt, and then when she brushed me aside, and then when that conversation ended and we left, she says, "Why'd you keep pulling on my shirt?" I said, "Because that woman was acting nice, Mom, but she didn't like you, and I didn't want you to stay there and talk to her." And she said, "Oh, yeah, all right." So every time I'd had an intuition, it always got brushed aside. And I know many sensitive people, that's what's happened to them when they're children, too. As children, we are much more open because in the womb till 5 years old, we operate in another brainwave, the one that can make a change in our life, the theta brainwave. It's not our rational. The cognitive mind, the beta mind comes in at 5 or 6, and that's the duality. Duality comes in where we analyze, but as a child, we're in theta, and all we do is absorb. Where in my one command book, I talk about the fact that I asked for original idea. And I said, I don't want something that I read. I don't want something somebody told me. I want an original idea. And so I got this download of the reason that we're all equal. The reason that we're all born equal is this, that we are all powerless, defenseless, and at the effect of our environment when we're children. And so, however we were raised and whatever the effect of that environment was, programmed our brain. That was what we absorbed as our unconscious thoughts, feelings, and our decisions about how safe or dangerous the world is. And so that's all in our subconscious mind in the theta state, in the theta brainwave.
So theta to beta, okay? You mentioned that we're in theta for about the first 5 years, maybe first 6 years. How does that happen?
The neurology of how our brain functions is a whole science all on its own, Amanda. It doesn't really matter how it does. It's just that it's been studied scientifically, and they call it, that's when our cognitive mind comes in. Before, cognitive was unconscious. And then the cognitive mind is when we come into beta. That means we can compare, contrast, and analyze. Before, when we're in theta, we just absorb. We just are in the environment that we're learning in. And here's the thing about how we learn. In the theta mind, as a child, you might be stacking blocks and then they get knocked over, and then you stack them again differently, and then they stay up, or then they get knocked over by your sibling. You don't learn anything while you're doing that. But when you sleep at night in theta, then the REM, rapid eye movement sleep state, is where you accept and neurologically create brain function, that you creating the neurotransmitters and the axons to create the brain frequency of that experience. So it gets programmed into the brain. That's where the computer part goes in. So now we get programmed with what I learned in that experience. I learned that things fall over. I learned that I have to watch out for people knocking them down. I learned that I can create blocks, and that's pretty cool. So those are all the things that I learned, but you learn it at the unconscious level in your theta brainwave. So that's how we develop our unconscious mind. And I'm just going to jump to now as an adult. So what my process is taking us in 6 steps into that theta brainwave and making a statement, which is called the command, the one command. And when we make that statement, we're doing it in theta, where the brain accepts learning, and we teach it, this is the thought I want to have now. So, for example, I know that you're so positive, but if you had a limiting thought, what would it be?
A limiting thought.
Yeah. What would you like to change, improve, or remove in your thinking?
I'd like to improve allowing myself to fully rest without guilt, without feeling like I need to be doing something. Like with running my own business now, there's always something I'm like, I could be doing this. I could be doing this.
Okay. All right. So that's an emotion. The emotion of losing control, the emotion of not performing. Those are the emotions of a belief that you picked up in your childhood. So in your childhood, you picked up the thought that you had to keep doing things to get approval. That was what the family decided. The family decided that you got to work and you got to keep working and you can't stop working. Is that true?
Yeah, 1,000%.
Okay. So one of my favorite statements is, what if they were just wrong? What if they were just wrong? Because in quantum timing, activity does not produce the result. And doing does not produce the result. In quantum consciousness, in the theta mind, the right brain, in the way that we interact in the quantum field in connection with each other, intention is what creates the result. Intention, thoughtfulness, mindfulness, those moments when you have your clients that are resting from their breathing exercises, that's when they're processing, releasing old ideas, and that's when they're creating an inner peace and an ability to be. So that's called the, mechanism of time. I'm writing a new book, and in it is a chapter called The Emotion of Time. And so the emotion of time is the feeling that we have to hurry up, that you won't have enough time. But in quantum time, there's only now. There is no past, there's no future. But Asara, I'm remembering my past. I hear that all the time. I say, no, you're thinking a thought right now. You're thinking a thought right now of something, and you're calling it the past, but you're thinking it now. It's not happening in anywhere back there. There is no back there. You're recalling and reinforcing some experience you had, because every time you rethink about an experience, you reinforce it. And they've done this science. I thought this was fascinating. You tell about the fish story. The fish was this big, and then it's 5 feet big by the time you tell the story the 12th time. And it says that's what happens to every individual when they retell a story. They change it. So we never even are telling the same story, that in our brain we change it. So here we are. You don't have enough time and you got to keep working because everything will collapse if you don't. So a command would be, I don't know how. I extend all my time. I open my timing. I don't know how I operate in quantum timing. I don't know how I have right timing for getting the essentials that I want to create it. That's a very long command. I don't normally do long commands, but I'm just having a conversation with you. And so I don't know how now, how do you can just say it mentally and that helps. But let's just say you look up underneath your closed eyelids. Just look up underneath your closed eyelids. This is how you access your theta brain. And then move your consciousness up, see yourself, imagine going out into space, out into the quantum field of open potential, the field of open potential of creating any reality. I'll command for you. Just listen to the command. I don't know how. I relax and know I have all the time I want and need to accomplish my goals. I only know is so now, and I am fulfilled. I don't know how I operate in perfect timing to serve my clients in the world in a better way. I only know I operate in perfect timing. I don't know how I take downtime, enjoy downtime, and know that everything else is operating exactly as it needs to, and I am fulfilled. Now, expand one more time. Just let go of what we commanded and be in the know-nothing state. Just let that happen. Lots of time here. Whew. There we go. All right, now just relax your eyes. Come back down into your body. Feel yourself in your body. So, what do you notice about what did you notice when you had that experience?
It was common.
It calmed you.
Yeah.
And when you go into theta, your nervous system relaxes. So even if you just look up under and imagine moving your consciousness out into the void of space, you're relaxing your nervous system. However, you're duplicating exactly the same state when you're asleep in REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, where the brain analyzes what you've learned during the day and accepts new things or rejects them. So now you've just created a new thought in your brain, and it has as much power as your old thought that you carried with you your whole life. And this new thought you can reinforce by doing follow-up commands. You only need to do a command once. It's not an affirmation. It's an actual mechanical shift in your biology. It actually affects your neurology, your biology, and even the fields around your DNA. So it's a mind-body technique. Now, when you're in that new state of timing, the little voice is going to go, but that's all right. That can't really be right. So the next command meets you in the moment. You meet yourself in the moment with the next command. I don't know how this is correct. I don't know how I accept and trust that I have infinite amount of time and consciousness to create exactly the results that I'm after. I only know it's so now when I'm fulfilled. And I know that you've had this experience, and people listening have had the experience where you intuitively think of a friend and you call and they say, "Oh my God, how did you know I'm having this experience XYZ." So that's quantum time where you're connecting on the quantum field of consciousness. And everybody says, "Well, what the hell is that?" So the quantum field, my definition, quantum scientists would put the thumbs down at me, but I use real world examples. So the body the brain science tried to figure out how we could make our hand move. How can we do that so quickly? And it can't just be the nerves. We can't have a thought and then have an action in our body so quickly just from our nerves running information from the brain down there. So they tuned into the fascia. So fascia is this field in the whole body that connects the whole body, everything. So they realized that the fascia, as well as the nerves, is what was transmitting information. That's why your toe can wiggle in a minute, your eyebrow can go up, you can, all of those things of how we control our environment. Now, in the quantum field, just imagine that the whole universe, hundreds and thousands of billions of millions of planets and solar systems and galaxies, and the field itself, which is a potential. The field is a wave of potential. It just is existing in this wave of potential is fascia. And we all are part of that fascia. So I can think a thought, you can pick up that thought. I can have an idea. And if you notice, sometimes when there's an invention, there's like 5 other people that have the same invention right at the same time. Why would that happen? Because we're connected. Because we're connected. We're not disconnected. We're connected. And so we have this field of potential in quantum science, quantum mechanics. The field is a wave of potential that has every thought possible, that has the things we haven't created yet exist. We know that our thinking created everything in the physical world. We understand that a thought was responsible for a chair. A thought was responsible for a fire engine. A thought was responsible for a dam. So we know that in our physical world, but in our mental world, in our emotional world, a thought is responsible for our conditions of our happiness, sadness. Our thought is creating reality internally the same way it's creating it in the physical world. So we can create new thoughts. And
That's so true.
how can you imagine what you haven't thought of yet? So the first statement of the one command is, I don't know how, which is telling the truth. Our beta mind doesn't know how. And we even don't know how in our greater intelligence, but we command it and it appears. Because in the quantum science, the field of the wave of the field is influenced by observation. So observation means making a choice. So from the field, I'm commanding a choice. So I'm taking this wave of open potential and I'm saying, and this is what I'm commanding. I'm going to experience it in my body. I'm going to experience it in my life. And we command it.
I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know how is telling the truth. Like,
I
don't.
also feel like it helps, like, even the mind, like, if you even don't trust it, like, if you even whatever, our minds think, like, you're openly saying, I don't know how. You know what I mean? And it's not like people will affirmation yourself to death. And if you don't believe it, like, you're just speaking. Like, at some point, like, okay, I'm saying this affirmation that I don't believe, like, am I suddenly gonna believe it? I don't, I have my iffiness on that, but I really resonate with how it starts with, I don't know how. Like, openly, we don't get this. I feel like that helps the mind even more.
Surrender.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Surrender. It's surrender to the beta mind trying to logically figure it out. And we can't logically figure it out because we don't have the answer. So if you already had the answer, you'd already have the solution. So I don't know how surrenders to a greater intelligence in us. And that greater intelligence taps into the infinite field and says, I only know, the words are very specific. I only know that I have more time. My time is quantum time to accomplish all I want in a relaxed state. I am commanding that I have that experience. And I'm going to program it into my brain that I have that experience. Because as I think in my mind is what I experience in my life. I mean, the power of that is people get kind of back off from it oftentimes. Holy moly, that means I'm going to be totally responsible for everything in my life. Well, yeah. I mean, I was at a workshop once where there was 500 people and a woman was up on the stage and she said, I know I create my reality. I know I create my life. The thing is, I just don't like what I created. And if like created, then you want to start shifting into another perspective. And it's not positive thinking. Yeah, positive thinking doesn't work because the unconscious, the beta mind is going to argue. So positive thinking doesn't work. But making a command to have a new experience works when you're in theta. And of course, positive thinking is beneficial. Affirmations are beneficial. Anything that is helping to elevate your consciousness and to support you in making change in your life is valuable. And there's many paths to making change. So I don't want to, put anything in a backward positioning. Everything is valuable. I just know that the technique I use is super valuable.
I get that. No, and I really think even like these little things, even like you mentioned, I only know that. Like, we're not saying to our mind, I know this and like I know everything. I only know that. Like, I think these very specific way that this is worded makes so much sense.
Yeah, and it was all downloaded to me. So one of the experiences that I had that my programming was to have a lot of successes and then to sabotage everything, to have it go away. I don't know if anybody out there's got that pattern, but I had it for years. And so I would make a lot of money and I'd lose a lot of money. Or I'd have a wonderful relationship and then that would go away. And I was building a retreat center on Whidbey Island, Washington, which is a lovely place. And I had gotten to the place where I ran out of money and my retreat center was, built, but there was some, finishing touches that needed to be done. And I didn't have any income to support myself because I had just taken 2 years and been involved in a construction project for 2 years. And I like crashed. Oh my God, here I am. I'm sabotaging myself again. How did I do this? My kids are going to be so ashamed of me. And, how can I get out of this? And I literally just gave up. I mean, I don't have an answer. My brain can't even cognate this to think about it. And I actually fell to the floor on my knees, that I gave up. And I just went into kind of a meditative state. And all of a sudden, this download of the 6 steps of the one command that I write about in the book, I got the whole process just downloaded. And I said, and I've made the command. I don't know how I keep my house. I don't know how I keep the center. I only know I do so now and I'm fulfilled. And an idea came to rent it out. I could go live somewhere else that didn't, cost $3,000 a month when I had no income. So I made that decision. I'm going to go rent it out. So I went to a real estate office in Whidbey Island and I said, I want to rent my place for $3,000 a month. And it was an acre barn, it had a cottage, and it had all of the different spaces for the retreat center. And she said, oh, you can't do that on Whidbey Island. The most you could get is $1,500 even for a big property. And I said, you're not my realtor. I did not go into agreement with her. So that's another mindset piece is do not go into agreement when you're after something with people that say you can't do it or you can't have it. So I just knew, no, you're not my realtor. So I commanded that I find the right realtor. And I'm in the grocery store and a little lady's talking to me and we chat and she's a realtor and her office is just catty corner to the grocery store. So we go over there and she says, Asara, I think I have a client for you. And the people had lived on Whidbey Island. They were from California. They moved up. The $3,000 was a big deal from California. That was super. And so they signed up, made a $15,000 deposit, and I went and got a little cottage and I started teaching the one command. And then I went to a bookstore and then people asked for more information and I started holding seminars. And then I got on radios and spread the news and I got invited to Europe and I taught in Europe. The one command took off and it's reached every continent. There's people practicing the one command all around the world, at least 500,000 people or more.
Wow. I really love how this all developed from a struggle that you were going through in your own personal life. And you just got this download and literally started saying, I don't know how.
That's right.
It seemed like something so simple. And then look at what you did.
Yeah, yeah, and, going into the theta mind, that was part of it, going into the theta brainwave, and I had training earlier, like I said, in the 70s or 80s, I had brainwave training. So when that downloaded, it was like, "Oh, wow, this is what I'm supposed to remember. This is what because it was something that wasn't foreign to me, but it was set up in a way that was a package I never would have comprehended or even thought about."
Wow. And it really seems like you even then started calling that in. That first person was like, you can't do that. And then you found the right realtor and it just started piecing together.
Yes, that was the quantum shift, was in the grocery store, was the meeting without time and effort. When you make a change in your biology and your brain, your whole outside world changes. And it's not hard. You don't have to effort. If you have to use force or effort or you're in fear, then you haven't cleared what's in your unconscious. You haven't commanded in the enough information to make a complete gestalt shift in your idea of what you're creating for yourself. But when you do, everything happens naturally. So I decided to write the book about the one command and the process. And I said, I need a literary agent. And everybody said, you can't get a literary agent. That's impossible. It's just so hard. That just doesn't happen in this day and age. I said, excuse me, I don't know how I get a literary agent. Within 3 days, a friend called, I was telling her about the book, and she says, oh my God, Michael, he's a literary agent. Hey, I'm going to tell him to call you. Now he's my literary agent still to this day. And we got, Nightingale Conant. You're familiar with who they are, right? Nightingale Conant. Okay, well, for years, before computers and internet, they would just send out flyers. And of course, they modernized as it came in, but they have promoted audiobooks or audio programs for 50 years on transformational ideas, on positive thinking, on how to get rich, on how to manage a business, all these ideas. And I had received all of their flyers and their mail flyers for years. When I did the one command, I was like, I'd be good on Nightingale Conant. That would be a good match for me. And I don't know how I'm on Nightingale Conant. And then I was talking to a client, and she turned out had been on Nightingale Conant. And she said, oh, I'm going to call, Robert, and he's going to call you right away. And they signed me up for 2 programs. And they're really what expanded the one command in the world, Nightingale Conant, because they send out emails and flyers to over 1 million people. And I got calls from all around the world. I started coaching people in the process. And everything that you want to have happen can happen if you get out of the way of trying to. My favorite saying is, you can have everything you want if you only give up everything you think you know. Then you can have everything you want.
Wow, I like that. Now, I'm curious how people can use this one command process in their everyday to improve everyday decision making.
So the 3 questions are, what do you want to change? I want to change my finances. I don't know how I increase my monthly income, or I don't know how I increase my business income. I only know I increase it by $20 million or $10 million or $5 million or $5,000 or $1,000. I don't know how I increase my income. I only know I increase my income now and I'm fulfilled. I don't know how I better my health. I only know I better my health now and I'm fulfilled. I don't know how I open my heart and I open my mind to a relationship that is loving and supportive. I only know I open my heart and my mind to a relationship that's loving and supportive. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg, because I'll use this example. A woman came and she said, yeah, I don't know, this is a good time for me to be here, but I think I'm going to have to divorce my husband. Our marriage is just miserable. And I says, oh, that's so good. I'm so glad to hear that. And she's like, what? What are you saying? Why would you say that? And I said, well, because you're going to be here for 10 days. And by the end of the 10 days, you're going to be so changed internally, you may or may not have to leave your husband. So the idea that some only takes one person to change in a relationship. It does not take 2 people. And it only takes the ability to change your field, your thought, your feeling about someone else. Because as we are seeing and perceiving them in our mind, we're running a program. We're running a program about mom. We're running a program about dad. We're running a program about a husband or a wife or a partner. And that program means we're locked into only having that experience. You know how I always go back home and the same thing happens with mom every time. I thought I was advanced. I thought I was improved. I thought I was this big, successful businesswoman. And now I go back and I have 5-minute conversation with mom and I'm like a child again. It's because we're running a program. And you shift the program in you. You can't ever shift anybody else. You can't change anybody else. You can't command for anybody else, but you command for them in you. So she didn't think her husband was loving or kind or listened to her. So I don't know how my husband in me is kind and listens to me. What, Asara? But that's not true. I said, yes, at some level it is true, but you won't allow yourself to have that experience. I don't know how my husband and me, in me, the picture I have of a husband in me, or a wife or a partner in me, is loving and kind. I only know they're loving and kind in me. And there's this process I teach where you actually call up the person and you have a conversation with them while you're in theta. And you shift the energy of your belief and your program around that person. Now you've shifted the vibration, you shifted the field, and you're in another dimensional consciousness. You're not in the old consciousness, you're in a new consciousness. And when we are in a new consciousness, the world responds. There's that consciousness exists. So she got off the plane and her husband was there with a bouquet of flowers. And he says to her, honey, I love you. I want to work this out. I'll do whatever it takes to make this marriage work. I want us to stay together. And they did. They're still together today. And so the power of what we can do to make a change in our life. I'll tell you a story about bosses. This one has happened so many times. A person, and I work with a lot of people in Japan. This was interesting in Japan, especially because they're very structured. They have a very structured society. So he says, my boss never says thank you. He never appreciates me. He doesn't choose me to do special projects. And I'm always worried that maybe I'm going to lose my job because maybe I'm not good enough. So I said, let's change the boss in you. You need a better boss. So we did the work. We did the internal work where I don't know how the boss in me sees me, hears me, and my job is safe. I only know it's so now and I'm fulfilled. I don't know how I get to express myself fully in my job and I'm appreciated. I only know it's so now and I'm fulfilled. And I get the call. I love the calls. Sarah, you won't believe what happened. I say, yes, I will. Tell me. Go ahead. Tell me what happened. He says, I walked in the next day to work and my boss greeted me with a smile. And he said, I just want to tell you, I really appreciate what you contribute to the company. I mean, honest. This is honest truth. So I'm explaining how when you change yourself, the world changes outside of you. Instead of trying to change the world outside of you to get something in yourself, you have to get something in yourself first.
You mentioned you take them through a process where they call the other person. Do they actually call the other person?
Yeah, it's called the interconnection process, I call it. So in the interconnection process, you go into theta, in the 6 steps, you ground, then you align in your heart, then you take a breath, and then you roll your eyes up and you imagine moving up into the universe. And then you imagine going through this field of light. And in this state, then you call forth the image of the person. And there's this some process. I don't want to go through it here, but you have a little conversation with each other. Is part of including like the hope. I see you. I'm sorry. I apologize for hurting you. I apologize for not listening. And I love you. And both parties do it. So then you're speaking to that image of the person in you. And this is not an easy concept to get, but I say it like this. The person that you're having a difficult time with has relationships with other people that are not difficult. So why are you having a difficult time with them? It's because you have an image called a program of your idea of them, and you fire that program every time you're in relationship with them. By doing this inner work, you're saying, I'm apologize for holding you in this position of opposition to me. I apologize for seeing you as the enemy. I apologize for you being the person that could hurt me and criticize me. I apologize for my perception of you. Forgive me, I love you. And then the inner person has an angel talking to them, and the angel teaches them how to say that back. And then you come to an agreement and you see a shift in their energy field, and that becomes your new perception of the person. And now the person has all these opportunities to meet you in the old way or to meet you in a new way that you don't even know yet what it's going to be. I mean, the one wonderful story is the girl that worked with her mom, who was a super critical mom and she could never do anything right. A day after I get the call, Asara, you won't believe it. I went home. My mom called me, which she never does. And she just says, I've been thinking about you. And I just want to tell you I love you. See, that's the mystic. That's the magic. That's the life we could live. I call it living the next great adventure of your life, discovering the person that you are and who you can become.
Wow. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Asara. I really appreciate it.
It was a wonderful time hanging out with you.
Have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
No, I haven't.
So he's got a podcast. He's a motivational speaker. He's written a book, and he ends his podcast on purpose with 2 segments, and I've stolen them. And I end my podcast with those 2 segments as well. First segment is the many sides to us, and there's 5 questions, and they need to be answered in 1 word each. What is 1 word?
Warm.
What is 1 word which used to describe you as?
Adventurous.
What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Happy.
What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you as?
Stubborn.
What is 1 word you're trying to embody right now?
Elimination.
Second segment is the final 5, and these can be answered in up to a sentence.
I can't remember. I am so far beyond advice. It doesn't even resonate with me. I'm sorry. Just listen to your inner wisdom. Listen to your inner intuition. Is it right for you or not? Check that out.
What is the worst advice you've heard or received?
You can't do it.
What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
Okay, the brain's going on that one, girl. You really got me. I'm less attached to the results. I'm more interested in the process.
If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
See, open my eyes to what I can do with my life.
If you could create 1 law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be?
One what?
1 law.
One law? Love. The answer is love. Just love each other, love.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me.
I love it. Delightful.
I agree. And I'd just like to give it back to the guest.
I think we covered so much. We've been all over the map. If you want to know more about the One Command, come to asara.com, asara.com. We have a free 7-day transformational course you can take with commands.
Awesome. I will link that in the show notes.
Instagram is I think Instagram even more than Facebook. I have social media people that do all that, so I don't really know what's happening.
Thank you so much for speaking with me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, my pleasure.
And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Manders Mindset. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only 1 mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.